Against the backdrop of course, this massive coronavirus outbreak and concerns about public safety and health, and the CDC warning that gatherings of 50 people or larger should be postponed, Democratic Party is still planning and pushing for primaries to go forward as planned. We have big states on the ballot tomorrow, including states like Florida, and have a lot of elderly people. Illinois, all these places where people are, public officials are essentially on the one hand urging them to stay home, and on the other hand urging them to go out and congregate in lines together and, put their fingers on voting machines, etc.
It's a total contradictory message, blatantly against. Look, the CDC guideline at this point is 50 people over the next 8 weeks. We just simply don't know how to deal with any of that. And at the same time, Joe Biden's campaign put this. We should note this came out before the CDC guidance came out. But he says the right to vote is the most sacred thing. State election are working closely with public officials. If you are feeling healthy, not showing symptoms, and not at risk of being exposed, please vote on Tuesday. I thought that was such an irresponsible message to put that. If you're feeling healthy, just go out. That's blatantly against what the CDC and everybody's saying. Actually, if you're feeling healthy, stay inside, because you might be a transmitter or a spreader to other people who are not so healthy. Who are the people we know this, anybody who's voted. Who are these poll workers? Right? Like, who are these volunteers? Who are all the people associated with our democratic process? We need to keep these people safe. We can't all just be congregating in these large lines. And if the states go forward with this, it is so blatantly irresponsible.
And look at every state that's voted so far. I mean, we may imagine and wish that our voting process worked more smoothly than it does. But the reality is we've had massive long lines in state after state after state. So, the Biden is putting out this information that's just wrong. The reality is that a lot of the transmission seems to have been happening from healthy, feeling asymptomatic carriers. There was a chart that I saw that was actually quite revealing. So South Korea has been testing like everyone. So they have a great sense of not just who is showing symptoms and has it, but also who has it, who doesn't show symptoms. And actually the largest percentage age-wise were those 20 to 29 years old, many of whom didn't feel like they had anything wrong. In Italy, where they were only testing those basically with symptoms, they had a very different proportion, showing again that it was the older folks who, yes, showed the symptoms, but it was a lot of the younger folks who were in fact the ones transmitting the virus. So you can't, on the one hand, again, to Democratic hypocrisy, be saying the president's doing everything wrong and he's shaking hands with people when he shouldn't, and they're sharing microphones and whatever. And on the other hand, be like, go out and vote, folks. Exercise your democratic rights. Get out there and get in line and do it. It's absurd. There's no reason not to postpone and have mail-in balloting.
That's the only response we can have to any of this. We have to have mail-in voting for the foreseeable future, and that's just how it has to be. The states have to get their act together, and they got to start printing.
And by the way, we should be planning for this for November. I mean, 100%. We don't know that this is going to be over by then, and things are going to be back to normal. In fact, some experts say we may see a resurgence in the fall. So this would, in fact, be a great test case where you could get those mail-in balloting procedures in place while you have a little bit of time. There's nothing that says legally that these primaries have to happen tomorrow. They could get pushed. It would not be a problem. 2 states have already pushed their primaries that are voting a little bit further in the future. There's nothing that says these states cannot take additional time and additional measures in order to make sure that public health is preserved.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Biden campaign sending mixed messages on that is just, they're like, no, everybody be safe. And I'm the guy who can handle the crisis. But for me, you got to come out and vote.
Right. Center for American Progress, same thing. On the one hand, they're saying they're urging all these precautions and don't go out and all of this. And on the other hand, they're urging we must continue with the elections as planned. How can you say both of those things? They're completely at odds with one another.
And nobody wants more democracy than us, right? We want more people to vote, right? Literally, I want everybody to vote.
A mail-in balloting would help make that possible, by the way.
They've seen that happen in the state of Oregon. I just think that this is one of those situations where I've learned a lot about people in my life, in public, through this.
They tend to reveal themselves, don't they?
This has been one of the most revealing things about some people I know and people in power about how they handle themselves in the middle of these situations. And I think that whenever it's any time when the chips are down on the table and you kind of scoop them all up for yourself, you see that exactly with this type of Biden.
Yeah, and it's so clear. They know that the longer Joe Biden is in the public eye, the more chance there is that this all slips away from him. It had to be done in this way where it's like so quick. The public didn't have a chance to like really vet him. They didn't get to ask about, you know, these lies and the past record and, well, how did you actually do in that financial crisis last time around? They're like, no, we have to vote now. We have to get this over with before people have a chance to ask questions. It's just so blatantly political and cynical that they would actually risk people's lives in order to make sure that they can keep their grip on power. That's what's happening.
It's absolutely terrible. And, you know, unfortunately, it looks like these things are going to go forward. I mean, I don't know how you maintain a 6-foot distance of somebody in a voting line.
How do you how do you tell people to go forward with an election when the candidates can't even in good conscience urge people to go and vote?
Right. It's crazy.
It's an insane situation. All right, we're going to have more for you next.